What did we learn yesterday? Other than blowing the dust off our brains and diving back into the wonderful world of coding.
We learned about use effect, so kind of like use state.
Yeah. What did
Um,
we use effect for?
It's a piece for a piece of data that changes and reruns the code.
Yep. And we used it to say, hey, when this page first loads, go ahead and run this API call. So we'll be seeing more of use effect, probably not in today's project, but it will certainly be coming back and helpful for your capstones. What else did we learn yesterday?
Is that coffee?
It is.
I'm so jealous of people who can drink coffee at night.
Oh, I can't. I'm making poor life decisions.
If I drink past 12 p.m., I'll be up until 5 a.m.
3 p.m. is usually my cutoff, but I normally have two glasses a day, and I did not have my second one. So I'm making bad life decisions and will be up very late tonight.
I'll be right there with you.
What did we
Literally.
do yesterday? Did we have any light bulb moments? Did we get any moments where, you were stuck on homework and feel like you got a little further or know where to go? How are we feeling in general? We're right at that halfway point in the program, right? Where we want to make sure, hey, let's do like a vibe check here and make sure where are we at? How are we feeling? We're all very chatty on a Wednesday, aren't we? Artrell, go ahead.
Well, I can speak for myself. Like, I can tell that I've learned some things, and there are some concepts that I definitely understand. But I do acknowledge that I definitely need to practice more, because for me, that's where I feel I'm falling short. Because I watch you, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how does Max know how to do that there?
Yep.
Like, I can talk out what you do, like, all right, this is what we need to do as a end user. Like, I
Yep.
can do that all day long. But knowing what to put, what code to write at that particular moment, that's why I still feel like I wouldn't know to do that.
So one of the best ways of going about that is setting up little micro projects for yourself, right? So looking at projects we've already done, going over that video in class and saying, all right, let me comment the code. Let me make sure not only that I understand what the code is doing, but we understand the order of that we wrote that code, right? And that's really important. It doesn't seem it because you can say, all right, I can read this code from top to bottom. I can tell you what all of this is doing. That's helpful. But really what's more helpful is knowing the order we did it and saying, all right, this is how we would build something out like that. From there, I know a lot of students get to the end of the program and they go, well, what now? Right. And it's like, well, you want to practice. You're going to be in the job market. You're going to be interviewing. You're going to be doing these technical whiteboarding interviews. But what's going to be helpful for you is just to stay practicing. Right. You can just Google 30 small JavaScript projects for a portfolio, or you could say React project ideas, or you could say, pick whatever module name you want. 30 APIs that I can use, stuff like that. And just Google it and set out a goal for yourself and work on it, right? Because you're going to get stuck at certain points, but you may get to that point where you're feeling like, all right, I feel like I already know React and I've seen Max do it and I don't have any questions about the homework, but I still don't feel confident with it, right? And that's a normal feeling as a junior developer, or honestly, even as a senior developer. So the best way to feel better about that is to not just keep on going over the videos, but to push yourself a little bit and say, okay, let me set my project out there. I want to go build this thing. And it seems small enough that I can say, hey, I accomplished this. And that's really the best way to build a portfolio and build your confidence on level of understanding.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Max.
No problem. Any other comments tonight before we dive back into our regular flow of building something new from scratch?
I was just gonna say, I feel the same way as Archel. I know I've come along and I have more confidence halfway through because I'm no longer looking at the information. Sorry, I'm really foggy. No longer looking at the code and thinking I don't have any idea what it's doing, but I can understand what has to happen or why something's happening better now.
Awesome. Yeah, and as you guys, the reason why I like spending time at class, kind of doing the vibe check together, is I think a lot of you are feeling the same way, but it's kind of hard to articulate that unless you're prompted for it, right? To say, hey, you know what, this isn't quite imposter syndrome, because I feel like I can get it, right? I am getting it, but how do I do it now? How do I practice with that? And that's really when the capstone really kind of kicks up at this half of the project, or this half of the course, right? To say, all right, now I definitely have a lot of knowledge behind me, right? I've got 14 weeks of things I've learned. How can I go apply that on my own? And while that may seem daunting to get started with, that's when you want to lean into your one-on-ones, right? Whether it's a TA you've connected with, whether it's Ryan or Nathan, whether it's with me, you want to start saying, hey, I did all of these wireframes for my project, or I have all this functionality out in my head. Now, we haven't quite crossed the bridge for databases and full stack. That's coming. But how can I practice my React? How can I practice my CSS? How can I practice my HTML? How can I even get started on JavaScript interactivity and different things there? That's what we want to focus in on your capstone. So where we're headed, just so you guys have an idea, this week and next week, we are still in React land. And then we have an entire project week, and there is no course content planned there. That is a chance for you to work on your capstone, for you to do open office hours, or if you're all caught up on your capstone, which I would be surprised if a lot of you were, you can go say, hey, I want to go do this mini project. Can you help me plan that out? And we can go in a breakout room and just talk through, hey, if you want to go make this project, you saw this idea list, go out, go do that. And you guys could even work on groups if you wanted to say, hey, I'm caught up on my capstone. I got my pages where I want. I've got the navigation working. I've got everything designed the way I want. What concept do I need to practice on? What do I need to push myself on? And then we can work together on planning out that project, so you guys can focus in on that. So that's what's coming, not next week, but the following week, is the ability to kind of practice everything we've learned up until that point, or just to throw concepts at me and go, I still don't get this. Can you go over, kind of something ad hoc to practice with that immediately? So that's where we're headed. After that, we get started in the database. We're going to be learning a database called Postgres. That is a SQL or SQL database. Structured or standardized query language is what SQL stands for. And that is how we start doing CRUD in the database: create, read, update, delete. SQL is the last new language we will be learning. Do not worry, it is not as complicated as the syntax of HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. It's a little bit easier. It's a little bit more English focused. And then we kind of round everything else out with the database. With full stack. We start working with the server. We start learning, hey, that API that we've interacted with, whether it's Owen Wilson or the API that Ryan built, or the New York Times, that's all cool, but how do we build our own? And why the API is so empowering is because when we hook it up to our database, we have completed that full stack. Our front end with our HTML, our CSS, our JavaScript, and our React, our database with Postgres and SQL, And then finally, the backend with Node, and we'll be using a framework called Express. And we'll be able to make API calls and basically take our capstone and make it usable by multiple users, storing that information, updating it, reading it, using authentication, all of that kind of stuff. So that is where we are headed. Do we have any questions on that? Okay. So what we are going to be building tonight is we're going to blow the dust off an old friend from week 2, day 4. I'm going to, let me pop this open and hopefully make sure, yes. We are going to revisit our old friend, the weather app. We're going to accomplish 2 things here. This is again from week 2, day 4, in case you want to pull up your files from that. I will also share this in Slack. So if you would rather use my code to reference instead of your own, you are more than welcome to do that from the live stream file. We come back to weather app before, we put in a drop down, but now that we've got the power of APIs and the reusable components of React, we're going to rebuild this in React and also build in the weather API so that we can get real data firing in from here. So the first step we need to do before we do anything is everyone's going to need to register for their own API key. And the reason why we do this out of order is the API key can take up to 15 minutes for it to activate and be usable. So I like to send everyone through this step early on so that it has time to process. So this is definitely a follow along project. We're going to do a Google search for the Open Weather API. And it's going to take you to Open Weather Map, the weather API. So you can click into that link. And then up at the top, let's see, if I click on subscribe, it's going to take me to a registration page. Don't worry, they have a free tier that is going to provide more than enough for us. Go ahead and fill this out. Oh, you know what? Hold on, that's not the free one. You want this pay as you call, 1,000 API calls free per day. Subscribe to the 1 call by call. Oh, why are they making you use a credit card? Oh, they changed this on me. Okay, give me a second. Sorry. Let me do a quick audible here. Let me see if I can sign into my account and we can use my API key. Okay, there is a free tier, sorry. Quick audible here. You are going to. On openweathermap.org, you're going to go to sign in the top right. From sign in, you are going to see the not registered, create an account. Go ahead and click on create an account. Go ahead and fill this form out. After you fill this out and hit create account, you're going to get a verification email. Go ahead and open your email and click on that link. And just be warned that email went into my spam, so there's a good chance it will go into yours. So let me start a poll here of when you got your account created, go ahead and vote in the poll.
So we have to be in the open weather. And then at the top, we're signing up.
Sign in, and then there should be a create account right here.
Sorry, which one are we consenting to?
Open weather map. When you go to the create account page,
Yep.
I agree, and then you don't need to check off anything down here.
Okay, perfect.
The next thing where it says company and purpose.
Where does it say company and purpose?
After you put your information in and you put create account, it says where will you use the RAPI company and purpose?
You can just say boot camp student. So you should eventually get to this page that says signed in successfully. If you've made it to that, you are caught up and you can vote yes in the poll.
So if I'm in the main page and it says my name on top where it says sign in, I'm good.
You're good to go, yes. So once you are in, you should be able to click on your username in the top right. And then go down to my API keys. And you should have an API key over here. If you do, you're all set and good to go. What their documentation doesn't tell you is this API key won't start working for another 15 to 30 minutes. So when you feel that you're doing something wrong, you're not. It's just taking a minute to activate. Everyone good? Anyone need a minute or help before we roll forward here?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. I just got signed in.
Okay, you got your email verified?
Haven't looked for it yet, just about to.
Okay. Don't forget to look in your spam if it's not in your inbox. The email tends to come in pretty quickly, but it likes to hide in spam on you. And once you click that verify link and get signed in, that will be the last step. Okay, while you guys are getting set up on that, we are going to fire up a new React project. So I'm going to open terminal. I'm going to blow up my text a little bit. I'm going to go into Finder. I'm going to navigate to my week 14. I'm going to make a new folder called day 2. I am going to totally cheat this time and type in CD in my terminal with a space. Do not forget the space after CD. And I'm going to drag and drop my file path right into my my terminal window. I'm going to hit enter on that. And then I'm going to npx create -react-app. And we're going to call this weather. And go ahead and hit enter on that.
Max, really quickly, where did you drag your day 2 folder again?
Into the terminal window. So
Okay.
if you hit command space and type in terminal and hit enter, that will pop open the window for you.
Okay.
I typed in CD space and then I dragged and dropped that folder in for me and hit enter. And from there, we can go to our weather app and go ahead and open that in VS Code. Then in my package.json, I'm going to right click, open an integrated terminal. And down in my terminal at the bottom, I am going to run npm start. Remember, we cannot use that go live button because it is a React project. So we should have our spinning React logo and our code in VS Code open. And if we do, I'm going to relaunch the poll. Make sure you guys are all set there before we move forward.
So,
Max, I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, so once it's loaded on the terminal, what do we enter?
npm start, npm space start.
npm space start. Okay, perfect.
And hit enter on that. And that's what should fire up your spinning React logo in your browser on localhost 3000. And you should be good to go and caught up there. And I will also start a live stream.
Are we starting a new project or are we importing the weather project?
Brand new project. We are going to practice moving our weather project over into React.
Understood. And I know how to do the whole React setup. Did we import the weather project yet, or we just have React up and running?
Just React, a
Okay.
blank, starting React project. Nothing in it.
Max, it's saying that my the permission was denied when I dragged my day 2 folder. So I don't really know if I'm
Go
doing
ahead,
something.
share your screen. Let's take a look. And
Okay.
then I'll come to you next. Okay, so you forgot typing in CD and a space before dragging that file path in. So
Oh.
type CD space. That's change directory is what that CD stands for. And now you can drag your folder in to terminal
Okay.
and hit enter. And now it changed it into that folder. So you can do your npx space create -react-app.
Space. I'm sorry.
Create -react, no space,
Oh, okay.
-app. And then another space. And then we're going to type in weather because that's the name of the app that we're going to create.
Okay.
And you can hit enter on that. Oh, we don't have Node installed. Okay, let me take remote control and let me see if I can help leapfrog you. Can you hit yes on that window that popped up?
Yes.
We don't have brew installed. Go ahead and enter your Mac password there and hit enter. It's going to look like it's not typing. It is. Come on, Homebrew, you can do it. You're almost there. There we go. Okay, once that is done, you can, oh, we don't have a no sync file created either. Fix that. So whenever you have code, you want to make sure it doesn't get uploaded to iCloud because it will create problems when there are all of those node modules in there. So we created this no sync file. If anyone does see their code being uploaded to iCloud, definitely schedule a one-on-one with me, or just interrupt me at the end of class, and I can fix that for you to make sure that that doesn't get uploaded. Okay, so now in our week 13, in our day 2, we've got our weather. We can go to our VS Code and file open folder and pop open our week 14 day 2 weather. And if we hit open on that, that's going to get our code started. We can right click, open an integrated terminal and run our npm start. And that should fire up our React page and you are good to go.
Thank you so much, Max.
No problem. Exona, what's up?
Gotta figure it out.
Never mind. Anyone else need help?
Yes, please. I'm pretty far behind.
Go ahead, share your screen.
keep losing everything. So I don't even know where the. Oh, it's way over here. There we go.
Okay, so you've got your open weather map going. Have you started in the terminal yet?
No, so is this all I have to do?
So far, yes.
The open weather? Okay.
Yep, you're all caught up there.
Okay.
So let me just request remote control so I can leapfrog you here.
Yes, please.
Okay, so you're not too far behind. All we are going to do, I'm just going to move that out of the way. We're going to go to your My Code. You've got your folders here. So I'm just going to make a new folder called week 14 day 2. And I can call that weather. And we're going to type in CD space, go find that folder and drag that into our terminal window. All that's doing is it's changing our working directory into the right spot. And from here, I can npx create React app. We're going to call it weather. And while that's running, you will notice over in the folder that we created, it's making weather for you. So while that's running, I'm going to pop open your VS Code. And I'm going to file open folder. And I'm going to go pop open the weather folder we just created. We want to make sure we're down in that weather all the way down at the bottom of that folder. Hit open on that. And we are going to open an integrated terminal. And we can do our npm start. That's going to fire up our React app for us and should pop open localhost 3000. And then you will be all caught up. You have on another monitor your spinning React logo?
I do.
All right, you're good to go.
Thank you.
No problem. Archel, go ahead.
All right, so on the package.json, I did the npm start, and it says something's already running on port 3000. Probably would you like to run the app on another port instead? Do I do yes or no?
You can just type in Y and hit enter, and that will fire it up on 3001 and shouldn't cause any issues.
All right, now I'm on 3002, but it's running.
That's fine. Close enough.
All right, I'll take it.
Kalai.
I don't see the weather app in my stuff. So I think everything is running, but I'm not seeing the weather app in my week 14 day 2 folder.
Share your screen. Let's take a look. Okay, so in your terminal over here, let me request remote control. What happened was you tried to CD without this space here, and you see how it says no such file or directory? It's confused because you didn't have the CD at the right spot. So what it ended up doing was creating it in your home folder, and we don't want it up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the weather folder that we already created. And then I am going to CD to, let me see, do you have, can you drag a Finder window over to this monitor?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to delete this file. I'm going to CD, and because I've got my space in there, when I hit enter and run a PWD, you can see now we're actually down in that day 2 folder.
Okay.
So we can npx create React app our weather. And while that's running, I can open that folder in VS Code, day 2 weather. And then while that's running, I can open an integrated terminal. We're going to npm start. And as soon as this is done over here, you can hit enter in this terminal and then you'll be all caught up.
Thank you, Max. Thank you.
Oh, you know what? It's almost done. I might as well just wait. Oh, no, it's going to take its time. Once this
Okay,
is done,
thank you.
just hit enter there and you're fine.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
I had that exact same issue. How do I go about that again?
So the CD is the most important thing to remember, and this is good for everyone to hear, right? Whenever we're in the terminal, it looks like we're running commands, but we're always running commands in reference to whatever our working directory, our WD, and that's what the PWD is for. So go ahead and share your screen. What we want to do is if you've created your React app somewhere where you didn't CD down to where you wanted to be, we want to delete that one because otherwise you're just going to have that hanging out there. So you were very close here. I see you were trying to follow along, which is good. It is RM, that stands for remove, and then RF is for recursive. But you can think of that as remove folder, and then we're going to do weather. That's going to delete the one that you created by accident. And then we can CD and a space. And now because we've got that space in there, when we drop in this file path, oh, you got weather, but it's empty. Okay. So we're going to drag this file path over. Now, when we run PWD, it's going to confirm that we're down in that day 2 folder so that we can npx create React app weather. And while that's running, I can take this folder and pop it open in VS Code. And we can right click on package.json, open an integrated terminal, and do an npm start. And as soon as this is done running over here, you can hit enter on here and you'll be all caught up. But definitely wait for this one to be done because otherwise it will be very confused. Any other questions? This is only the second or third time that we've created a new React app. So this is all kind of part of the flow, right? Creating new projects from scratch is always the hardest. And you won't actually be doing it a ton once you get hired. The vast majority of the time when you get hired professionally, you're going to be working in a team who's already created projects, right? But the reason why we spend so much time going over that in class is not only to make sure that you can follow along for the rest of class, it's because when you're working on your portfolio, it's going to be really important that you can fire up a project on your own and get started on it. So that's why we spend the time making sure everyone's caught up in class. Do we have any? Oh, go ahead.
Yep. So do you do touch no sync so the iCloud thing doesn't? Okay.
Yes, that touch space period no sync. Whenever iCloud sees that file in the directory, it will stop syncing anything else in that folder or any folders inside that folder.
So do I touch no sync week 14 or do I go deeper into the weather itself?
No, go all the way up. If we did that in class together like 2 or 3 weeks ago, up in our my code folder, we created the no sync file, and that will make sure any projects, any folders anywhere in your my code folder will not sync.
You did it for
iCloud.
me, but like it's still syncing for some reason. I still see the cloud and stuff. You did it for me when we did our one-on-one.
Share your screen really quick. Let me take a look at that.
Okay. Share screen. You see my screen?
Yes. Let
Okay.
me.
So I
request
see the
remote
little cloud
control.
logo right there. Yeah, go ahead.
Might expose me to show that this isn't actually working for anyone. LSLA. There's your no sync.
Mm-hmm.
Uh. All right, I'm gonna have to look into that after class and get back to you guys.
Looked up who's going to be trending. I'll tap that. The first thing I see this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that and get back to you guys.
Heard.
Releases on his face and swallow.
Mm.
When I tell y'all,
Sorry.
All good.
Anyone else for questions other than iCloud, which I will get back to you on.
I have a statement to see if I'm correct. I'm not sure if.
Sure.
So if you are doing, I know how to get to this and actually start the file this way, but also if you already have a React file, can you copy the file and then just erase everything in the app.js? And
Ye-
there?
Yes, the only thing though is that if you have like an app.js in another project and you want to bring it into this project, then yes, you can definitely just copy that code. What you can't do is copy it from an existing React project into a folder that you created on your own. The npx create react app command is generating the node modules for you and the package.json. All of that is what you need from that terminal command.
So can you duplicate a previous project? A previous
Yes,
project?
you can, as long as it has the node modules folder in it and the package.json. Yes, you can duplicate a project and then use that duplicated one from there.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of, do you want us to delete the node modules or no?
No. We need that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So from here, we are going to, in our app.js, source app.js file, we can delete the entire header component. We can delete this import logo from SVG. And we can open up app.css and delete everything out from there. Still keep your app.css and your app.js. And then the other thing, we are going to be referencing our weather code. So if you want to reference my version that I created, you can go into Slack and pop this file open. Just have this open over to the side. Or if you want to use the one that you created, you can go File, New Window, go File, Open Folder, and navigate to your week 2, day 4 folder and go ahead and pop that open. And if we hit go live on this, it should bring up your weather app that we worked on before. So that, again, that is week 2, day 4. And I'm going to have that code kind of open over here to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the top and I've got my Bootstrap link up here. So I'm going to copy that whole line, go over to my public folder to my index.html, and I'm going to drop that in somewhere in my head section. Again, that is this link tag that's up in my head of my week 2, day 4 weather app. We're just going to reuse that link to Bootstrap. And hit save on that. So we should have Bootstrap in our index.html. That's the only thing we need in our index.html. So close that file out. Then I've got some styling over here. All of this styling is going to be applied directly the same. So I can take this style, copy it, go over to my app.css and paste it. Again, that is everything inside this style tag, not the style tag itself, just the items inside of it, you can go ahead and copy that, go over to our app.css and paste that. Now, finally, we should be in our app.js and should be ready to rock and roll. We don't have anything inside of it, but just to recap the steps here, in public index.html, I took the link tag from my weather app for Bootstrap and pasted that sucker in to index.html somewhere in the head. Then I went to my app.css, went over to my weather app and took everything that is inside the weather style tag. I copied that, I pasted that over here. And then I went back to my app.js and I'm ready to rock and roll. Does anyone need help with any of that? Artrell, go ahead.
Yeah, you kind of did that way too fast for me, Max.
Okay. Only 2 steps. Index.html. We went over to our existing code from
Wait.
our yeah.
1 second. All right. So in another window, I'm opening up week 2, day
4.
4. Okay. So I got that open in another window. Okay.
Yep. Index.html in the
Right.
only file that should be in day 4.
Right. I'm there.
Okay. There's a link tag to Bootstrap.
I see it right above the title for weather.
Highlight that whole thing and copy it.
All right, hold on. Got it.
We're going to go back over to our React. And we're going to open public index.html.
Okay, public index it. Okay.
We're going to go anywhere in the head and go ahead and paste that link tag in.
Could I put it underneath the first link that's in there?
Yep, anyone is fine.
All right, that's in there. Command S. All right, that's good.
Now we're going to open up app.css.
All right, app.css. Yes.
There's anything in it, hit Command A, delete.
Command A, delete. All right, now that's empty.
Now we're going to go back over to our weather, week 2, day 4.
Okay.
And we're going to copy everything inside the style tag.
All right, hold on. Okay, including the word, just from weather icon down.
Yep, not the style tag itself, just anything inside of it.
All right, got that.
Okay. We're going to go back over to our app.css and paste that in.
Got it. Command S. Okay.
And that's it. You're done.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
Can you do a live share on my screen real quick? Because I'm getting compiled with problems.
Yep, share your screen. And I already did a live share. It is in Slack at 6:01.
Share screen. Well, I can't share my screen.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So unless I followed the steps wrong.
Okay, you can delete out everything in the header component and everything inside the header, basically leaving only the div class app name.
Okay.
I don't think that's your problem though. Save. Oh, that is your problem.
Oh, that was it.
That was it.
Cool.
Anyone else need help?
Still catching up.
Anyone else also need a minute other than Jennifer or need me to redo a step?
Does yours say compiled with warnings?
Compiled with warnings, you should be able to get rid of in your app.js. If you've got an import for the logo, you can go ahead and delete the logo out and that will get rid of your warning. Delete the import line, not the file itself. Or live with the warning because it's not going to harm anything.
I just had an extra enter after return.
Oh, that will do it too. Artrell, go ahead.
Should I close my week 2, day 4, or still leave that open?
Leave that open. We're going to be referencing that as we build here.
Okay, thank you.
So the goal here, what the approach we're going to take is we're going to move our existing React code. I'm sorry, our existing weather code into React. We're going to make the static version of it work. Then we are going to componentize it. In other words, make it more repeatable, more easier to read. And then we're going to integrate our API, which is going to require state and use effect. Last call for questions or asking for a step to be repeated. I know this is a lot of clicking around, a lot of windows open. It balances out from here. We're all going to be in app.js. We're not going to be bouncing around files. We're just going to have our 3 windows open, our live React code, our week 2, our day 4, the code we've already made, and then our React app code itself. Okay, so I am going over to my existing code, my week 2, day 4, and I see I've got a div class container in here and
You
a
want to
row.
share your screen?
Nah, I thought you guys could do it blind. Okay, so we've got our week 2, our day 4 open over here, and we've got a lot of code over here. Now we could just blind copy and paste it all over, but that scares me. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this down one by one and say, okay, what are we putting where? This is going to be very, very, very important that we are making sure that wherever we're copying it from, it's getting pasted at the same place over here. So I'm going to start with my container. And before I copy and paste the container, I'm going to say, where does my container end? So I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here, and I'm going to say, hey, this is the end of my container. This is basically everything of my HTML is going to end up inside that container. So I'm going to copy my container. I'm going to go over to my React code, and inside that div class name app, I'm going to paste my container. Now you may say, Max, where did that closing tag come from? VS Code is helping you out. It's realizing that you pasted an opening div, so it's going to automatically close that div out for you. Now, what do we know about React? What is kind of weird with React? When we create a div, what do we know about classes in React?
We have to say class name.
We have to say class name. So we're going to go ahead and update that to say class name. So all we did is we brought over our div class container and renamed it to class name instead of class. So I'm going to come over here back to, and we still just have a white screen. Where did my localhost 3000 go? We still have a white screen, or you may have that looks like a gray border showing up. Well, where's that coming from? Well, if we go back to our React code and look in our app.css, we targeted the container. That container has a border and margin and padding. That was all written. We took that CSS over from our existing code. Now, because it's got that container, it's seeing the class name container and making that show up. Okay, it's good. We're on the right track. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to attempt to take my entire first row over. So I'm going to click on my div here, and I see my closing div ends right here. I'm going to take all of that over. So I'm going to highlight all of that. It is 35 to 53 in my code, but we are taking the first div class row and all of the stuff in it. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to my React code, and I want to make sure that is inside my container. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to paste it. And immediately before I even get into the browser, I've got errors here. It turns out I can't use HTML comments in my React code. It's okay. I'm going to just go ahead and delete those out. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to head back over to my browser and boom, we've got a lot of stuff in there. All my styling came over. My whole first row is there. Good to go. The only problem is React's kind of doing me a solid here. It's saying, hey, you used class. You're really supposed to use class name, but I knew what you meant. Okay. So we could go in and we could rename all of those to class name, but it seems a little tedious to do that time and time again. What if we could hit Command F to find all the places where class equals something? Now, notice I put in that equal there because if I leave out the equal, it's going to change things that are already set to class name itself. So I'm going to search for wherever there is a class equal, and then I'm going to use this little arrow here. Again, to make this window pop up, this little toolbar, I hit Command F. I'm going to type in class equals into the first box, and then into the replace box, I'm going to type in class name equals. Don't forget this last equal, because if we do, it will replace the equal in the first one without an equal in the second one. And make sure you have a capital N there, because class name, all props in React, we camel case them. So now it's saying, hey, I found 5 different class equals, and I can replace them one by one by clicking on this first button. Or I can click on this second button and it will replace all of them for me. So find and replace, very helpful tool, not only for converting your React code over, but by doing any data entry or data validation, data cleanup. Find and replace is a really powerful tool that you want to use. Pausing here, does anyone have questions or need help? What we should have is this showing up in our browser. Mine might be a little zoomed in. Don't worry about that. Artra.
All right, I did the class equals, change it, replace it with class name equals.
Mhm.
It looks like it only did one.
So the button to the right of the second text box will replace them one by one. The button one over from that will replace all of them.
All right, so on the, okay. And is it in the same line where it says class name equals? Is that what you're talking? What?
Yeah, so this button will replace one by one. This
Okay.
button will replace all of them.
Okay. All right, looks like they all got changed. Okay.
So you're good to go.
All right, I'm just gonna make sure. All right, I got some errors on mine, but I'll work that out. I'll come back if I need help.
Okay. Anyone else need help?
I probably put in the wrong div, but yeah, I need help.
Share your screen.
Heard.
I know this is painful, but the reason why we do this is you guys probably have some HTML created for your capstone, right? So this is giving you guys an opportunity to practice of saying, hey, how do I move this code over to make it all work? Okay, so the first thing I notice, like nails on a chalkboard for me, is our indentation is off. And
Yeah.
because of that, we may have an error that we can't even see. So what I'm going to do is, first things first, I'm going to fix our indentation. I'm going to say, hey, this is our whole container. We're going to move that over one. Then we say, hey, everything is inside this row. I don't really know where that closing div is. So I'm going to click on this div and it's saying this is the closing div for the row. So I'm going to say, let's move this one over so it's indented. Let's bring this one over to the point where it's going to line up. And then we can say, all right, this is all the stuff inside of that div. So I'm going to take all of that and I'm going to bring that over to here. Now I'm feeling a lot better about our divs, right? I don't think we've got any extras. I'm just going to click through to make sure. Okay, all of that looks okay. So I'm going to save and bring your browser window over for me. Do we still have errors?
Yeah, nothing's popping up at all.
Okay, so I'm gonna try, let me refresh this. Oh, leave that there for me.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna refresh and it doesn't look like we have any issues. So let's pop open our console. And our console says, hey, you've got some things called class. Did you mean class name?
Oh,
We
yeah.
sure did. So we are going to do our find and replace and find any class equals and replace it with class name equals. And then the other problem that we have is it says, hey, you're using a style prop. And this is really good for the rest of the class to pay attention here. When we use style in our regular HTML, we are able to just pass it a string, right?
Mhm.
But in our React code, we are not able to pass it a string. We have to pass it an object. Now you may be saying, well, Max, why didn't you have that problem? Because I didn't have any inline styles in my own code. However, if you had inline styling in your code, you need to convert this over. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass in an object. And then we are going to put this into a string.
Whoa.
And when we use an object, we convert it to camel casing. So we need to do the same thing here and move that to there and make this its own string. And now when we switch back to Chrome and refresh, not only are your errors are gone, but you can see everything up here.
That was a lot. Okay. Noted though. Thank you.
And then I think the only thing that you're missing is there's normally some emoji right there. And now you're all caught up.
Thank you.
Anyone else need help?
Even the same thing.
Starting to feel, hey, maybe I'm not the only one here running into problems moving my React code over, right? This is all practice. This is why we spend time doing this in class, so that when you try it on your own, you've got a little background of, wait, someone else had an issue with a style tag and that was breaking everything. Or, hey, I've got a completely white screen in React. I don't know what's broken. Well, that's a good reminder to pop open your console, see if there's anything in the console, because that may be giving you a hint as to what you need to fix.
Hey, can you show me again how you did text editing, where you just picked all the classes and then changed them to class name?
Mhm.
Your screen though.
In VS Code, you hit Command F. You type in whatever you're looking for. So if I wanted to change all of my divs to, I don't know, spans, this little arrow is what you click on to give you the replace window. It's going to show you all of the divs that it found. And then you click this second icon in the second row, and that's what will automatically replace all of them for you. Obviously, I don't actually want to replace all my divs with the span, so I can just hit Command Z, and that will back it out for me. Any other questions?
Just because it went too fast for me, I just want to review that what we've done so far is we opened up a React file, copied in our old code from the app to put it into the JavaScript and the HTML.
You got it.
Okay.
And then the only other thing we did is we replaced all of our classes with a class name.
Okay.
And so we were kind of strategic when we did that, right? Because if we look over in our regular code, I didn't take all of this down here. And we're going to get into why I didn't do that. Because what we wanted to do is say, hey, let's take section by section. What's the complete hunk of this code that we can test? Okay, this row is kind of all on its own, right? So we can take all of that over. But when I come over here, I'm looking at this and I'm like, doesn't feel right to me. This is a lot of repeated code. Wouldn't it be nice if we could make one component and then reuse that component? In other words, we're going to dry out our code. This is a don't repeat yourself, dry out your code. So before we copy and paste this whole thing over, I am going to say, all right, there's a row here and there's some ID on that. That's probably got some styling. So I'm going to take this div and I'm going to say, all right, before I even leave this, where am I taking this from? This is at the end of row 1 and there's an HR. So I'm going to go over to my code and say, all right, here's the end of my row. And if I click on that div and scroll down, it's my third div from the bottom. That's what's closing out my row. So I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to do command and slash. That's going to put in my new React style comment. Again, I've got 2 divs at the end, and then that one is closing out the row. And I'm going to say end of row 1. So that's just separating us out. That's making sure we don't end up putting our second row in our first row, causing any issues. Then I'm going to put my HR in. Where's that HR coming from? That's the same HR that we had over here. And then I'm going to copy my second row underneath the HR. And here I'm going to say end of row 2. Now we're not putting anything in row 2. I'm not bringing over all of the div stuff that was in there. I'm just making the div for the forecast row. So this is everything that we did. Just make sure that you've got 2 closing divs at the end. That's closing out our container and our div class name app. We want to leave those alone, but very important to make sure that we are outside of our row 1, but still inside our container. So if we check over in the browser, now we've got our horizontal rule, that is our HR showing up, and nothing inside our forecast row yet. That is just this HR and this div without anything inside of it. Anyone need help with that? Want to make sure I haven't lost too many of you guys. I'm going to just relaunch a quick poll here.
Can I see your browser, Max?
Yep. The only difference we should have is that like gray line should be showing up, and that's it.
Thank you.
This is why data is so important, because I thought I lost more of you guys than I actually did. So appreciate that. Brandon.
What was my question? Oh, where do we have to look for the gray line again? Because that's not showing up for me, so I just want to double check.
That's this HR right here.
And I didn't save, thank you.
Cool. Okay. So now we get into the new stuff, right? Because we're looking at our code over here and we're going, all right, we repeated a call, a text center, and then we had the name, but that's still in a p tag every single time. We had the little icon that shows up, but that's still in a p tag that has that class on it. And we have this p with the number showing up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make one component that's going to be reused across all of those days. So I'm going to come down here. I'm at my last curly brace, and I want to say, what is that curly brace closing out? So I'm going to go all the way up here. It's its own function. It's its own component. We're going to make our own component now. So we're going to say const, and I'm going to say forecast day. And you may say, Max, why in God's name are you not camel casing that? Because whenever we create our own components, we always use title case or name case, right? Every letter is capitalized. And the reason we do that is so that when we use this component, we can tell it apart from native HTML components or the components we've created ourselves. Okay, in here, we are going to return. And what do I want to return? I want to come over here and say, what is the same across every single one of them? Well, there's a div class col with a text center. That div closes out here, and then we repeat that over and over again. So I'm going to take this entire div, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back over here, and between my return and a semicolon, I'm going to paste that div inside of there. Then I'm going to quickly change my two classes to class name and save. And I'm going to go back over to my React app. Where is it? Did everything right. I made my forecast day. I returned something out. I followed the React rule of only being able to return one div. I got everything in here. The data's there, Thursday, 68. I come over to my browser, it's not there. What do we need to do to make this show up?
Do you have to call it?
We have to call it. How do we call a component?
That's a good question.
Use state. Or is it use effect?
Well, you once it's if it's I was gonna say export it, but it's on the page. I would say to call it, you have to like call the component like an element.
Yeah, bingo. So first we got to say, where do we want this component to show up? That's going to show up in our forecast row, right? Because if we look at our other code, we can see, hey, this whole thing is inside the forecast row. So I come over here, and this is where the JSX kind of gets tricky with us, right? It plays with our minds a little bit, because normally we call a function by saying something like forecast day with the parentheses, right? But that's not how we call a component in React. React wants to blend that JavaScript with our HTML. So what we're going to do is we're going to say forecast day. Right? We are calling our own element. Now, I just want to show you here in the console, it's given us a heads up of a hint of why our forecast day isn't showing up. It's saying it's assigned a value, but it was never used. Well, when I put my forecast day in up here, all of a sudden my warning goes away. Okay. So now when I go look at my browser, boom, we've got our forecast showing up. Stopping there to poll and help anyone who needs it. You should only have one of them showing up so far.
So do you have to space and then close the tag, or is that just something you like to do?
You don't need the space, you do need to close the tag. Well, you could technically do it like this. That would also work.
All right, thank you.
Poll is showing me that you guys need a couple more minutes to catch up to that. Again, we should have this showing up over here, and this entire new component is what we created. This const and the return are new. The div and everything we created inside of that div are coming directly from our existing weather app. Then we changed our class to a class name in both locations. And then we added our forecast day inside our forecast row.
And to be clear, that forecast day is how you call a function in React, or how you call something in React.
It's how you call the functional component. Yes.
Functional component. Okay.
So this forecast day right here is directly linked to this forecast day down here. And to prove that, we can actually say, hey, by doing that, this whole div is essentially going to be inserted to where we call it right up here. And to prove that, if we go over to our browser and right click and inspect, we can actually see, hey, here's our forecast row. That forecast row is coming in right here. What's inside that forecast row? Our text center with Thursday forecast icon in 68. So basically everything that's getting returned here is getting inserted to where we call the component here. Archer.
Can you show your browser again real quick, please? Okay, all right. Thank you.
No problem. All right, the votes are trickling in. Looks like most of you guys are following along. You guys, one more minute here.
Hey, Max,
Remember, yep.
I just have a general question. I don't know if we're doing this just for the sake of like, so that's more readable, but like technically in that forecast day component, could we also have included like the div, like the class, the row, and the ID forecast row, like in the forecast day? Or
No, and you're gonna see why in a second.
Okay.
You could, I mean, technically you could, it would not break anything. But if we did that, when we reuse this component, every day would be in its own row.
Okay, I see. As you were saying it, I could see why it's best. It's easiest and most reusable, like the way it is. Okay.
You got it. Last call for any help or any questions. Okay. So we are going to say, all right, now we've got our 1 day showing up. We went through all of this work in order to make this forecast day be more repeatable. So if I copy this whole forecast day and paste it, I can now hit save and boom, we've got 2 forecast days. Okay, it's pretty cool. But last time I checked, there aren't 2 Thursdays in a week. What React concept can we use in order to make Thursday say Thursday and the second one say Friday?
Isn't that what we did last time? Where like we copied it and then edited? I forgot what the proper verbiage is though.
You actually said the answer without realizing you said it.
Okay, that's cool.
Archel, do you have a question?
Oh, I was going to ask if it was state, but I guess I wasn't correct.
It is not state. It is not use effect. It's the other, it's not a component. Well, it's kind of a component. How do we pass information into a component?
Huh?
Props. Okay, how do props work? Well, what we can do is up here, we can add in our HTML elements, right? We can add in HTML properties. So what HTML properties have we seen before? Well, class, oh, that should say class name, sorry. Got a class, we've used ID. We can name whatever we want and make it our own custom prop. So here, I'm going to say day, and I'm going to make that equal to Thursday. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add another day and I'm going to make that equal to Friday. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here. It still says Thursday, Thursday. Well, it's not yelling at me. I don't have any errors. My terminal's all good. I've got Thursday in here, I got Friday here. What do we need to do in order to make those actually show up?
I was gonna ask, how does it know the day is the day? You know, do we got?
So I can come down here and I can say, hey, you're going to do something JavaScripty. Let's delete that out and use the day down here. Okay. Now I've made React very cranky and it's blowing up my code. What's the one step we need to do to make the day work here?
Do we have to make the function look for a day as an argument?
Bingo. When we pass props in here, we've got to give forecast day a heads up. Hey, you are going to receive the day as a prop. So I come over here and now my Thursday and my Friday are showing up. I'm going to stop here, but I just want to make it clear our forecast day, both of these are linking down to our forecast day right here. Our day here is lining up with our day that we're passing in right here. And our day, because it is in those curly braces, is pulling the day from the prop that gets passed in here.
So you create a variable, forecast day, and then you put whatever you wanted to return, and you call that function at the top, but you also have to make that the forecast day, the event is day.
What do you mean by event?
So wouldn't the so that's not an event where it says const forecast day equals that would
This
not.
is a function.
Oh, okay.
And because we're calling it as an HTML element, it is a component as well.
Okay. Okay, so my verbiage was wrong. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You probably have a cross wired there because when we added an event listener, we also gave it a function to say, hey, when this event happens, go run this function over here.
Okay.
And so that's why this is very similar to the event syntax. The only difference is that because we are calling it as an element here, and we are returning something here, this whole function ends up returning out a component.
Okay. Okay. Now I understand. I get it. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
I don't understand. And secondly, my screen is popping up two things. So can I share my screen?
You sure can.
Thank you.
If you guys are caught up to this point, you can go on break. We will be back probably at 7:30. Or you're welcome to stick around and see what other issues people may be running into.
See that? See that?
No, because you haven't started your share.
Oh. Do you see your screen now?
I can, but you're sharing your empty desktop.
Bro. How about now?
Now I can. You're good to go.
So I got Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, and they're like overlapping.
So show me where the prop gets used.
I put it in right here.
And then where else do we use that prop?
Well, I know we like find it over here and then we
Yep.
Oh, are you saying because I don't have another of this in here? No.
What is being repeated?
What's being repeated is the forecast day.
Yes, but what inside the forecast day is being repeated that we don't want to be?
The days, these.
Can I show you, Schneider?
Yeah, please. I mean, I'm open to help.
Yeah.
Oh, Tuesday. Yeah.
So where's that Tuesday show up?
Right here.
Do we want Tuesday to show up for every single forecast day?
No.
Okay. Delete. Save. Hey, we fixed it.
Okay. Thank you.
So you were saying you don't understand. I just want to reiterate this. The forecast day here is basically saying take anything that's getting returned from here and stick it into where we call the forecast day.
Mm-hmm.
Then we say, hey, we're going to pass this prop called day. So forecast day, heads up, you're going to get this thing called day. Then, because we've got these curly braces right here, it's saying, whoa, that's some JavaScripty stuff headed our way.
Right.
So the word Thursday is going to get passed into the prop here. Then we're going to use that prop right in here to make that Thursday show up.
Okay.
But we are also going to use forecast day again. So this whole return is going to get run a second time, except now we're passing Friday in. So same prop, but when we use it down here, this is now going to be Friday. So because we've got this twice, it is going to show up twice, but the content of it is going to change based off whatever the prop is.
Okay, I just gotta remember to like update so it doesn't overlap like last time.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else need help?
Oh, I mute myself.
Okay, break until 7:30. See you guys. 4 is we need to use routing for that. So tomorrow we're going to do our first project with React Router, where you actually have a component for each page, and then you can have as many components on that page that you would like. But we need some way to bridge the gap between, hey, this is the path in the URL, and this is the component that I want to show up when that path is active. So we're going to learn about linking tomorrow and React Router, and I think we're going to do the blog project tomorrow, starting to play around with routing and going from there. All right. Did anyone have any questions or get stuck anywhere over the break before we dive back in? Okay. I'm going to share my screen. So we got our 2 days showing up. We got our day of the week showing up. Now we've got 2 more things we got to fix. We've got the forecast icon, and then we also have the temperature down here. So let's go ahead and fix those. I'm going to add 2 more props. One is going to say icon, and we'll just say one of them is snow, and the other one is going to be the sun. And then we need one more, and that's going to be the temperature. Now, there are 2 ways we can pass props. So far, we've just passed the prop as a string. But in React, we can also pass a prop using those curly braces. So I'm going to pass one here that says temp. And because it's a number, I'm going to put in the curly braces and type in 72. And I'm going to say 22 there. And then we need to modify that down here. So I'm going to delete out my emoji and say, hey, I'm getting the icon to show there. And I'm going to get the temp to show there. And then we just are missing that bridge of saying, hey, forecast day is going to receive 3 props, day, icon, and temp. So we switch over here. I've got my correct day showing up and the temperature as well. And I believe we had 5 of these. So I'm just going to throw in Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And we'll just say 32, 42, 52. And change some of these out. To whatever you'd like to show up there, just to shake it up a bit. Save, we come over here, and now we've got a very clear way of reusing our code there. Artrell, go ahead.
All right, so for your line 33 and line 34, for icon, you got that. How did you get those little icon symbols to pop up again? I'm sorry, I'm slow.
Oh, you're fine. Control Command Space.
Okay, Control Command Space, and just put those in there, and then I should be good.
Yep. When you double click on the icon, it's going to put it in wherever your cursor is.
Ah, okay. All right, I will give that a go. I'm not gonna hold the class, but I'll give it a go. If I have an issue, I'll raise my hand again.
Cool. Let
Thank
me
you.
pause to poll there just to give you guys a minute to catch up if you need it.
So I have a question regarding the location. So we put forecast day in div, in between the divs. Like, is there like specific spots to put them? Like, you know how you put content in the headers, like the link tags, things like that, or are they just fine there?
You can use a component wherever you would like. So you can't, reference the component before the return. You couldn't say up here, oh, make the forecast day show up, because it's got to be within the HTML portion of our JSX. But you could make, if you wanted to, you could make the forecast day show up here. And that's going to look really weird, but basically, when we put that in up there, it's going to take whatever this div is and put it in right here. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Cool.
So mine are, for some reason, mine are not showing up. It's literally the same. I don't know why.
Did you update this down here to use the day icon and temp from the props?
Apparently not.
Kalai.
The browser is completely changed and it says something different. So
Okay. Share your screen. Okay, it is mad because if you scroll up a little bit in your app.js, to where you've got a forecast day on line 4. I was just showing that as an example for Schneider. So if you delete that out, it should go back to normal.
thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I should have been more clear of that, not to follow along on that one. Phone numbers are ticking up. Give you guys one more minute and then we can roll forward here.
Hey, what's you reusing the icons? That's not clicking for me right now. Like how are the clouds and stuff showing?
These are just emojis.
Ah,
And so the control command space is what gives you the emoji picker. And all we did is just like we passed temp in as a number and the day in as a string. Icons, emojis are technically just strings. So I drop the emojis in and then they get passed in just like any other prop.
okay.
Totally a hack because using icons otherwise is a little bit more involved, as we learned with material icons. So by using the emojis, it makes life a little easier for us. Yeah, just one more minute and then we can roll forward here. Let me know if anyone needs help. Anyone need help or have questions before we roll forward? All right. So we now have reached the point where we've reactitized our code. We've converted over everything. And in fact, if we go back to the original one, this is what we made in our before we knew React. And now when we go over, not only is it almost identical, which makes sense, we copied and pasted it, but we've cleaned up our code, we've used class name, and we started to make our code a little bit more readable, right? If you were looking at this code compared to our initial HTML, this is a little bit clearer to understand, hey, this is what's going to show up every forecast day. We've moved the data out, what's unique across that component, into their own props, and then we've used those props to make that component really reusable. That's all cool, but wouldn't it be even cooler if we could have real data showing up in there? The actual current temperature and that kind of information. I think that would be pretty cool. So we're going to go back to the open weather map page.
Can you share this? Okay. Can you share the screen, Max?
Thank you. So we got to head back to open weather map. I stupidly did not leave that tab open. If you get this gray loading screen, just be patient. Their website's running a little slow and it like locks you out of using anything. Okay, so in here, we are going to go to their API. And while it seems tempting to do this one call, I believe what happens is when you click on this subscribe, we get to this continue with Stripe, and that's the credit card stuff. So we don't actually want one call. What we're going to go down to is this current weather data. That's the one that we want to use. To get started, where you won't worry about the forecast, we just want the current weather to show up. So if I click on subscribe on that, it should take us to this thing that says free over here. That's good. That's what we want. So I can hit get API key. And that should take me to the API's key page. Okay, so let's go back. Sorry. I want to find their documentation. So I'm going to click into the API doc. And here it's saying, hey, you can go to Open Weather Map. If you pass a latitude and longitude plus your API key, it's going to return the current weather data. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I don't know what my current latitude and longitude is. I kind of want to pass you a zip code, not the latitude and longitude. So I'm going to keep reading here. And it says, if you need the geocoder to automatically convert city names and zip codes to geo coordinates and the other way around, use our geocoding API. Okay, that's helpful. Let's click on that. And that, if I scroll down, it says, hey, pass me the city name, the state code, and the country code, plus your API key, and we will give you the results that have the latitude and longitude. Okay, so that's where we need to start. Now, it's always tempting to go right to our code and try and make that work, but we want to make sure that this is working on its own. So we're going to open up Postman. And I'm going to close out of all the New York Times stuff because I don't need that. And I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to copy this example API call URL. And come over here, open a new tab and paste it. And I'm not going to query for London. I'm going to query for Manlius. And I don't know how they want me to format the state and the zip code, right? Or the country code. So I'm going to come over here and say, oh, look, they've got commas between it. That's what they want us to use. And the country code, I don't know if they want USA, if they want US, if they want America. So I scroll down, I look at their documentation, and I see, hey, all these country codes are single letters. That means that they probably want 2 letters. So I'm going to say, Manlius, New York, US. Obviously, if you would like to change your location or use Syracuse, that's totally fine. So I hit send here, and the first thing I get back, invalid API key. Well, of course, it's an invalid API key. I haven't updated my API key here. So in a new tab, I'm going to go open weather map. I'm going to wait for this gray thing annoyingly to go away. I'm going to click on my username in the top right and go down to my API keys. I'm then going to highlight my key and copy it. Then come over here and paste it into my Postman. And if I hit send on that, I get back, oh, the town of Manlius, and look at that. My latitude and longitude are there. Pause there, see if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, Max, I'm just curious. So when we look under our profile, we do the drop down, that's automatically just our key. We don't have to create a new one.
Correct. When you create an account, it automatically generates one for you.
Okay.
Do we have to click on anything else to get that information, or just our key?
Just take the key that shows up here.
So
And then, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so we went in and we were looking in the documentation for the current weather data, right? And we said, all right, there's a problem here. It takes latitude and longitude. And of course, I could go Google what the latitude and longitude are of Manlius, New York, but I want to make this eventually down the road so that they could select multiple different locations. So I was reading here because I'm like, I don't really like this lat and long. I want to be able to pass in a city name. And that's exactly what this is saying, is it's saying, hey, you can convert city names and zip codes using the geocoding API. So in order to get more information about that, I clicked in and they're saying, hey, these are the details of what you can put in to get the latitude and longitude out. They need to know the city name, the state code, and the country code, all of which that are separated by commas. And then we also need to pass in our API key. Well, in order to get our API key, we go to our username up at the top and down to my API keys, and we have that key there. So what we do is we copy this whole URL over into Postman. We update it to include the city, state, and country code. And then we also put in our API key right here. Because we've done all of that, when we hit send, we get back the zip code or the latitude and longitude based off of the query that we enter. I'm going to just drop the links to this in chat and to the live stream in case navigating the API documentation is a little tricky.
What did we say we had to do for code, just the US part?
The country code, yes, just US.
So.
Any questions on this? Were you able to get your latitude and longitudes back?
Not yet.
You guys, 1 more minute there. This URL is very persnickety, right? So you don't want an extra space in there. You want to make sure you've got your commas between your city and state. You want to make sure that you've got whatever the parameter name is. In this one, it's Q for query. And then this one, you want to make sure you got the ampersand saying, hey, we're going to pass you a second get parameter or URL parameter. And then we're going to name that app ID. Don't ask me why it's not called API key. It should be, but every API is different in how they want their authorization. We've got our equal between it. And then we've got whatever our API key is that we pulled from our username API key page. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm getting invalid API key. I'm scanning it to see if maybe I'm having any issues with like the URL. I don't see any, or at least like the errors aren't indicating. And I'm definitely using the API from my open weather API keys page.
Did anyone else run into that problem?
Yeah, but I'm assuming I'm just putting it wrong, like the information. Like, I see the limit, and I'm not sure what goes inside limit.
Limit is you can just leave it at 5. We're actually going to change it to limit 1 in a minute. Brian, go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Wait, just real quick. Do we have to put something in limit? Because that might be why. I thought yours didn't have anything. So
no, it does mark that as optional, so you shouldn't need it.
okay, well I'll share my screen.
Yep, let's take a look.
Okay. All right. Do you see my it's my postman?
I do. Your problem is the spaces between Camillus, New York, and US.
Oh, okay. So
actually, you've got.
You said that we
2
should have a
issues.
space.
No spaces. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
No spaces there.
That's what I thought.
Then
Okay.
there's also, I think this might cause problem. You see these 2 weird arrows at the end? Those are trying to represent line spaces, i.e. like you hit the return key. You didn't actually hit the return key, but when you copied and pasted it, those came over for free. So put your cursor at the end of those and just hit the delete key twice. And that should get rid of the arrows.
Oh, sorry. Oh, this right here?
Yep. Actually, you can do it there, or you can do it up in the URL up here.
The URL, it's not letting me,
I'm
getting blocked by the, okay, I'm sorry. There we go. All right, so just delete.
Put your cursor right here, and then you can delete them. Hopefully. Will it not let you?
I'm a little confused what you're saying. You're saying, so I'm just gonna, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna delete it, and then I'm going to repaste the key, all right, and see what it does. Does that help? Okay.
You still have those arrows there. So I think actually you were on the right track. Your arrows here, try and delete them there.
Okay.
There you go. There you go. Okay,
Okay.
now when you paste it, you should get it without the arrows.
Okay.
Beautiful. And then get your spaces out from here, and I think you'll be good to go.
Okay.
All right, drum roll, please.
I keep trying to get to the button, but like the screen share stopped. Did I do something bad?
Did it work? If you hit send, does it show up?
My Postman just closed. I don't know what just happened. Oh, okay. Here we go. Oh, so now it's saying limit is not a number.
Okay, so change those curly braces limit and delete out the curly braces and the word limit and just put in the number 1.
Okay. Okay, I got it now.
And that is the very reason we use Postman, because it's easier to work through the issues in Postman than it is to figure out in our code what's going wrong.
My turn, Max.
Go for it.
That Postman, yeah. Share. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. No spaces, circuits near blah blah. I put 1 for that limit right here, and then my API key is right over here. So I'm getting a 401 blah 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 invalid API, which is
okay
because my API is right here.
Okay, go back to your Postman. And all right, you've got me stumped.
Yeah, I'm stumped too. I could try it all over again and
where is your
back.
all the way over? Okay. Did you here's your problem. You haven't opened your email to confirm.
Huh, okay. Let's stop sharing my screen real quick.
Yeah, good idea. So after you go to your email and click the link, it may take like 10 or 15 minutes for that API key to activate, or it might be instantaneous.
Yeah, I just made the account. I didn't know how to do that.
Yep. Click on the link and then give it like 15 minutes, because sometimes it just takes a while. Unfortunately, that's nowhere in the documentation. So when I did this project last year, I couldn't figure out why nothing was working. And then everything just started working. And I realized it just took some time.
All right. Thank you, Max.
No problem. Any other questions before we roll forward here? Okay. So we've got our geocoding API working. That's cool. I'm going to open a new tab. No, I'm going to share my screen before anyone can tell me I'm not. Okay. Now I'm going to open a new tab in Postman, and I'm going to go back and I'm done with the API for geocoding. Now I want the API for the weather. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say, hey, here's the call to get the current weather. So I'm going to copy this whole thing, go into Postman and paste it. And I had been editing the URL up here directly. And while that works fine, Postman actually gives us this nice little interface down here that allows us to update those parameters without us having to modify the URL directly. And that's just helpful to make sure that you don't accidentally delete out an ampersand or you get all the curly braces or whatever. So I'm going to go back to my first tab and I'm going to copy the latitude. Then I'm going to go back to my second tab and paste in my latitude. But I already noticed I made a mistake here. I've got a space between my equal and the number. So I want to come in here and delete that space out to make sure everything is put together. Then I'm going to go back to my first tab again, and I'm going to copy this longitude and paste that in. And then finally, I'm going to grab my API key from the first call and paste that into the second call.
Real quick, why'd you use the second link again? The one with the longitude and latitude? Why did you use this second one?
Oh, because this one is getting the actual current weather data.
Ah, okay.
So if I hit send on this, I can see, hey, here it's currently misting.
So we need to have 2 Postman tabs open. The one
Correct.
we just got for like city and state, and then a new tab, we put in that API with a latitude and longitude. And then we have to plug them in under the values.
You got it.
Thanks.
And I also just pasted the link into Slack for the second API call that we're making. You poll, make sure you guys are getting your weather results back. Should see the coordinates, the weather, the description of it. Excuse me. And again, we're using all the results of the first one, and we're manually copying and pasting the latitude and longitude into a new tab and using the query params editor down here to enter in that information.
My
Yeah,
key's gonna be the same as it was before.
Yes, the API key is the same.
Thanks.
Looking over the data and does like the temperatures, do they convert to something? Because like
That is
Celsius
a
or Fahrenheit, those are crazy numbers.
that is a great question and what we are going to solve for next. All right, most of you guys have voted in the polls. Anyone need help? Chandra, did your API start working? Okay, give it a couple minutes. All right, we're gonna roll forward here. So Brian asked the next question before we even had the chance to get to it as a class. We're looking at this and we're like 283 degrees. Lived in Syracuse for a long time and it's never been 283 degrees here. So what's going on? And I'm like, oh. At this point, you may go, you know what, this API is stupid. Let me go find another weather API. That's the wrong reaction. What you want to do is dig into the documentation. So we're going to go back over here and I scroll down and here are the weather fields and, you know, it's got information and whoa, this has a really high temperature as well. All right, I want to dig into that. So I'm going to keep on scrolling down here and I get down here and it says main temperature, unit, default, Kelvin. Oh, well, that's the problem. Kelvin never has a negative temperature. Well, that's stupid. We don't want it to default to that. So I can change it to metric Celsius, imperial, Fahrenheit. But how do I do that? So I'm going to go back up and I'm going to look in the parameters and looky here, there's a units. And that units says that I can change it to imperial. Okay, so let's try that. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to add a new key called units. And I'm going to paste in the word imperial or spell it. And I'm going to hit send. And now, oh, look, it just changed to light rain and misting. But I've got my temperature out as 49 degrees. All right. So we've got everything working in Postman. Now we've got to pull it all together in our code. So I'm going to move Postman off to the side. I'm going to come back over here. And we learned last night, hey, when we want to make an API call, when the page first loads, we need to use effect. So I'm going to say import use effect from React. I'm going to come down here and say, make a new use effect. That use effect is going to run some function. And we only want that use effect to load the first time the page loads. That's what this empty array is saying. That is very, very important. If you only get one piece of code right for the rest of the evening, please, please, please make sure you got the comma and the empty array there. Otherwise, you're going to end up making a lot more API calls and your API key will get blocked. So make sure.
I know I'm wrong in saying this, but why wouldn't defer work? You know, I'm pretty sure defer in JavaScript like stops the page from loading or something like that. I think so. Why wouldn't that work here?
I've never used defer before.
Oh, okay, never mind. I think Doug taught us that.
Oh, that only works in a if you're using a script tag. We're not using a script tag here. So use effect is like the React version of document onload. That's kind of what the equivalent is of the use effect here, if we include this empty array as the second parameter.
Okay.
Okay, so in here, we know we are going to want to make a fetch call, right? So we're going to say const make API calls is going to equal an async function. And then, because we're making a new function, we have to remember to call that function. Now we can go fetch stuff. So we can say const geocoding response is equal to an await. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to fetch something. And what URL are we going to fetch? We're going to go back to our Postman, go to our first tab, not our second tab. We want to make sure the URL that we're grabbing here is the one that has geo in it. We're going to copy that, go back over to our code. This whole URL is what we're taking, and paste that in to our fetch. Then we need to say, hey, the geocoding data is going to equal, and we've got our response, but if we're looking over here, our response is all in JSON. So I'm going to come back over here and say, oh, wait, the geocoding response parsed out as JSON. Then finally, I would like to console log out whatever the first result is in the geocoding data. Whoa, whoa, whoa. How did I know to use the bracket 0 there? I know that because this is in an array. So I want whatever the first match is to show up when I console log that out. I go back over to my browser. I don't see anything here, but look what I've got going on down in my console. I've got all of the data with the latitude and longitude.
Could we pause here for a second?
Oh, for sure.
Thanks.
Not only are we pausing, we are pulling. In case you're wondering where this big URL came from in Postman, make sure you're grabbing the first tab, the one that has the geo as part of the URL, and we're pasting that whole thing in as the parameter of our fetch. Make sure that that is inside of a string. And then this whole block of code is what is new. So I'm definitely giving everyone more than a minute there to catch up on that. Well, it's only 4 or 5 lines of code that's really running there. There's a lot going on there. So even if you get it working, go back, make sure you can pull it apart and explain to yourself what every line of code is doing there.
Can you maximize your code? Okay. Hmm.
And again, the result that we're looking for is in our console. Make sure that you're in the correct tab that has 3000 or whatever your React port is in the URL. And if you pop open the console, you should be able to see the latitude and longitude for whatever city you've got as part of your URL.
Hey, I need help. I'm having many
Go
issues.
for it.
I know it's a syntax error. I know it's something to do with,
Yeah, it's going to be something with the end of that string. Yeah, so you've got your closing parenthesis already at the end of the line, so you don't need this one here. And then this one should say geocoding data instead of geocoding response, because we're going from the fetch to the response JSON to the data, then the data is what we're logging out here.
okay, cool. Now it's fixed.
Good work.
Thank you.
Those pesky long strings. Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a syntax error for me too, but I just can't find it.
Not a problem. Go for it. Okay, we've got 2 apps that's causing the problem.
Oh, okay.
So all we need to do is actually take this one out and make that all part of one, and that should fix it for you.
Okay.
Okay, now Max, I'm having my inspect tool give me a warning with an invalid DOM property. I can't find anything that only says class though. I searched it.
Share your screen. Let's take a look. Brandon, did that work for you?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you so much.
Cool. Jennifer, go for it.
Okay. Figure out the right one to show you.
So sometimes if you go over to your Chrome, those warnings are actually old. So you may have actually already fixed the issue, but it didn't clear itself. So if you go back into your Chrome window,
Okay. Refresh it.
and refresh it, do you still have it in the console?
Nope.
So you did fix it already. It's just a refresh that clears out the console.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problem. Ryan, go ahead.
I just kind of have like a general question, and just for clarification. So going over, you know, the await function, the make API calls.
Mhm.
Is the await, just to make the comparison to make sure I'm getting the concepts down? Like if this was if we were using promises,
Mhm.
like do the awaits those like the geocoding response and the geocoding data, is that the same as like a dot then basically? Like you're
So
handling,
we-
okay, like go ahead.
We are technically still using promises. It just doesn't look like it because when we think of promises, we think of dot then, right? So await and async still use promises under the hood. It's just a different syntax. So disclaimer here, I'm going to rewrite this code. You do not need to follow along with me. I just want to show you guys there is an equivalent way of writing this. So we could take our entire, I'm going to comment this out. Don't follow along here, just showing an example. We can take our entire use effect. We still put it in a function, but we can take our fetch and without the await, say dot then give me the geocoding response. And once we get the geocoding response, I would like you to return the geocoding response.json. And then I would like to get that as the geocoding data and console log out the geocoding data. And if we go look and refresh, we still should get the results in our console. So this code is doing the exact same thing this code is, like exactly the same when JavaScript runs it. They're just two different syntaxes. This is more clear as the syntax for promises because it's using dot then. Async await is accomplishing the same exact thing, except what we're doing is instead of saying, then do this thing once we get the response, we're instead saying, wait for the response, then go parse it out as JSON, then wait for the parse to be done, then go do the next thing. So the only difference that we really have between these two syntaxes is saying, go do this thing, wait for it to be done, then store it here, as opposed to go do this thing, then give me access to it, do this thing, then when that's done, go do this next thing. Right? It's kind of the same thing if you gave someone else instructions. You would say, hey, go get this thing started, and then when it's done, go do this next thing. As opposed to saying, wait for this thing to be done, and then put it in here. So I'll leave this commented out in my code. If you prefer the syntax, if the syntax makes more sense to you, you are completely allowed to use it. This is the syntax I prefer, and we'll be using async await a lot more once we get into interacting in the database. However, whenever you have an await, you can always write it with the dot then, and whenever you have a dot then, you can always write it with an await.
Do you want to clear up what async does again? Like my notes, I say that's running in the background unless we tell it not to. Is that accurate?
That is, yeah. So we can't use the await keyword unless we declare the function that we're using the await keyword in as asynchronous. But asynchronous code in general means it will run in the background unless we tell it to wait for it. So this fetch is going to run in the background. If we left this await out, it would try and parse the JSON before the results of it were even back. So that's why we have to say await, because this URL is going to run in the background unless we tell it to wait for it to come back.
And that would cause problems because it's trying to parse the JSON without the URL being like active.
Yeah, without the response coming back from the URL yet.
Okay.
Asynchronous code is kind of 200 or 300 level of computer science. It's a tricky concept to work with, but basically, because a URL could take a long time to load, by default, the browser makes that URL run in the background. And so what we basically say here is wait for that URL to be done in the background before we move on. All right, any other questions here? All right, we're almost over the finish line. We've got one more step to do. Once we've got all of our geocoding data, if I look in my browser, I see that latitude and longitude are accessible to me. So I'm going to move that into its own variable. I'm going to say const long. Let me start with lat. Const lat is equal to my geocoding data. Use whatever the first response is in the geocoding data and pull out the lat. Also, go make a new variable called long. That's going to come from the geocoding data, still the first response, and it's going to use the longitude. Then I'm going to go back to my Postman, go grab the second URL, copy that, go back into my code and say, hey, we're going to make a new const called weather. I'm going to call it current weather response is equal to an await fetch to my entire URL. Now I'm going to use backticks here instead of quotes because I want to use a template literal. Instead of hard coding my latitude in, I'm instead going to say $ curly braces, go use my lat. Wait, where did my lat come from? That's coming from the variable, coming from the geocoding data, coming from the first API call. I also am going to change my long into my $ curly braces, long. Then I'm going to get the current weather data, going to await the current weather response.json, and I'm going to console log out my current weather data. And now I get a 400 bad request. I believe the problem is this is just LON, not LONG. So I pop that open and I see my temperature. Oh, went up a degree. So let me fix that. That should be there and there. Wherever you have the word long, make sure it just says LON. That was here, and that was here. Make sure you don't have long, you have lawn. And that is it. That's where we're going to stop for the evening. You should be able to, in your console, see whatever the current temperature is outside. If you can see that, you are all caught up. I will kick class off tomorrow with a terms session that we can capture any new vocabulary terms that we've used in the past 2 days. If you have any terms that you would like to define and capture in our notes, keep a list, bring it to class, the beginning of class tomorrow, and we can start going through it. We're not quite done on the weather app. We've got to actually start using this data to make it show up in our page. We will start there tomorrow, And then after break, we will switch over to remaking our blog project and practicing with routing.
Dumb question. Do we gotta worry about our tokens being shown for those of us who like shared our screen and stuff?
It's a good question. It's probably not a bad idea to in the open weather map, you can actually disable this one by clicking on the little like toggle button and then you hit OK. That will disable it. And then you could always generate out a new key to use instead. If you did share your screen, it's a good idea. I'm going to leave mine active until tomorrow. The chances of someone watching our YouTube video and being able to scrape the text off of it are pretty slim in the next 24-hour period. But tomorrow, it would be a good idea to deactivate or delete your API key and regenerate a new one. When we get to the back end, we'll be learning methods of how we can store our API keys so our code still works using something called environment secrets. That won't get published to the internet, but will still make our code run. So you do have to be careful with API keys. However, it's more of it's easier for someone to get your API key from Git when we start publishing our code than it would be for someone to like go through the YouTube video and see our API key there. So if we had millions of followers, yes, I would certainly be a lot more cautious with that. But it should be fine to leave it overnight. It's not like you're going to get, banned from open weather because the API key is in the video.
Heard. Plus mine's still not inactive, but I'll change it tomorrow just to be safe.
Cool. I will stick around for the next couple minutes, help you guys catch up if you need it. If you are following along and you have your weather showing up in the console down here, you are good to go. You can get out of here. Otherwise, I will be here. Raise your hand and I can help you. Leave my code up. I will also, before Kalai can ask, copy and paste this into Slack.
Hey, Max, I just have a quick question about the week 13 homework. It says we just have to submit the app.js file. How does that like work, out of curiosity? Like how are you guys able to see the homework with just the app.js file?
We basically can copy and paste the app because the only code that you've changed is in app.js. We just copy and paste it into our own React project and then test it that way. You're muted.
Okay. And I guess I used components. So I have like files for like my components. Is that okay?
That's fine, but you should turn in all of those files, not just the app.js.
Got it. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
We are experimenting with GitHub Classroom, which would be a way to turn in assignments using Git, which would allow you to turn in multiple files. But that is still very much a work in progress. So eventually we'll shift over to that system. So when you get into full stack stuff, you can just turn everything in at once.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Brandon, go ahead.
I got it figured out. Sorry.
No problem. Kalai, you're up.
I think I lost when I was doing that API, my Postman has a problem for some time. So I kind of lost there.
Okay.
So I was using your code, but it's giving me error completely. So.
Oh, that could be because I just disabled my API key. If
Okay.
you refresh it now, because I turned it back on, see if that's working now. No? Okay.
No.
Share screen. Let's take a look. Ooh, that's ugly. Okay. Let me.
So now I lost all my code, whichever I had before. So.
Okay. So the problem is you're in index.html. Other than us putting in Bootstrap, we should never be working in index.html in a React project. So everything going on in here, this should all be in our app.js, not in our index.html. So I'm just gonna undo that back to what it's supposed to be, which is all of this stuff.
Okay.
Now you're back up and running. So I'm gonna come over and check your console. And we've got nothing in there, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So I'm gonna go to your app.js. Here is, I believe, all of your code.
Okay.
And you've got this working here. So you're actually really close. All we need to do is say current weather data.
Yeah, I
is
was trying to replace Manlius with Syracuse, but it just like it got messed up. So
Okay, so we can just do the JSON, and then we can console log out the current weather data. And then even here, we can change that to Syracuse now. And we switch over. We see, oh, that's interesting. It's pulling Fayetteville apparently, but our, where is, oh, there it is. Our main temperature is working properly.
oh sure. Thank you, Max. Thank you.
No problem. Jennifer.
Hello. Getting just the strangest message here. So let me get the screen I need to show you. Let me go back.
Oh, put it, yeah, there you go. There, you got it. Okay. Interesting. Okay, line 14, and then we also have a bad request, and I see the issue on that as well. So take me over to your code. And the problem that we have is you've got your longitude still included here. We are basically saying we don't hard code those anymore because they're coming from the results of this first request. So we can take these out because they're automatically going to be dropped in from the first one. So, am I going in the right direction? Ah, okay, there we go. So let me refresh. Now we don't have any errors, which is a good sign. So I think the only thing we need to do is say, hey, you made the fetch request. Now we need to turn it into data by using the response and parsing out the JSON. And we're going to wait for that to be done. And once it is, we're going to console log out the current weather data. And that should give us the current temperature.
Okay. That's wonderful.
Don't ask me why it's putting everyone in Fayetteville when we asked for Syracuse.
Not a clue. I mean, it's fun. We'll come hang out.
Good work.
Thank you.
Zona.
Hi. So can you hear me? Yes.
I
perfect.
can.
Okay. So this is the, I'm gonna share my screen really quick. This is what I got, but I don't have a LAN.
Okay, so it is actually working. You already fixed this. So when you refresh.
I thought I did. Okay, never. Okay. Cool. Thanks. I waited all that time for a refresh.
It's always nice that I can be confident in being like, no, you already fixed that. Without actually seeing any of your code.
One thing I've learned in this class, if it's anything, is don't forget your semicolons and don't forget to refresh.
And save.
And save. Three most important things to make a code work.
Those semicolons, man.
Thank you.
No problem. Hey, I'm the crazy one who comes back every cohort.
I don't know how you do it. You must love it. Gotta love it.
Any other questions for this evening before we call it?
Mm-mm.
All right, everyone. Have a great evening. I'll see you tomorrow.
Good night, guys.